In the beginning, when I first got my first camera, I started to take picture of everything I had around, my cat, trees, and whatever I could find. But eventually you become kind of tired and you want to take picture of people. However, I kind of met a couple of challenges which I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to show you how I solved them so you can do the same if you have the challenge. I don't know, maybe you're perfect. So in the beginning, when I wanted to take picture of people, I had no experience and I was kind of awkward when it came to people, and for most people are not very used to being taken picture of by someone with a DSLR and stuff. So most people, when you're taking picture of them, they kind of become a little awkward. And when you don't have experience, you might be a little nervous. And now you got this evil ball play going on where you become more nervous because they are awkward, and they become more awkward because you're nervous. The second issue I had was that my gear was not optimal. I don't even remember what I had, but I wanted to take these amazing, beautiful pictures that the professional did. Now, usually professional photographers, they have an expensive DSLR and they probably use an expensive lens, which most likely are on 85 or a 50 millimeter with a very nice shallow depth of field. That's the kind of the typical for portrait pictures. But there is a hack that could fix both of these problems, and I'm going to show you how. Most photographers usually get a DSLR with a kit lens. That kit lens most likely will be a super zoom, which means you can zoom in on a person or an object. You can kind of move forward, can't you? So with these super zooms, you actually have a really long tele lens at the end of your zoom. This is not a kit lens and this is not a cheap camera, but this worked back in the days when I used a cheap camera with a kit lens, and it will work today as well. The problem with kit lenses, and especially zoom lenses, are that your minimum aperture are quite high. So it's very difficult to get that shallow depth of field. That's when the background gets blurry and beautiful so that you can really focus on the person you're taking the picture of. So what I want you to do are the following. You take your camera and you zoom all the way out to whatever the highest number you have. Mine is 240. If yours are 105 or 150 or 300 and something, that doesn't really matter. Now this is the focal length that I want you to use, your maximum focal length. Because what happens when you use this focal length are that your field of view will become like a tunnel vision, which will remove everything around your subject, which means in practical that all the mess around will kind of disappear and allow you to find these mini backdrops kind of anywhere. Another thing that happens are that your field of view will be compressed. If you're taking picture of my arm, my face will actually look much closer to the arm than if you were taking a picture with a 50 millimeter. And another thing that happens are that the background will become soft. When you're using a lens like this, you must stand pretty far away to be able to take a picture of a person, which is actually really good, because the more distance there are between you and that person, the less it will show that you are awkward or nervous, and the less you will see that the person are awkward and nervous, and the less you will affect each other. So it becomes kind of like a safe space in between you that will kind of relax the mood. The challenge of using this technique are that your lens will require a lot of light. My lowest number at my highest focal length are 6.3. Now 6.3 is a very high aperture. It requires a lot of light compared to a lens that takes 1.8. Another thing that can happen are when you have zoomed all the way in, your handshakes will affect the motion blur in the pictures. So to be able to remove those motion blurs, you have to add up your shutter speed more than what you probably will use with other lenses. And there's kind of like this rule that when you're going handheld, you should, in theory, have double shutter speed of your focal length. So that means when I look at my lens and the 240 number, that means I should at least have 1/500 in shutter speed. Now, of course, this is just a guide. You can try with a little less, but if your shutter speed are double the number of your focal length, the chances are that your hand shaking will not affect the motion blur that much. I've never had a problem with it. If you're going below that number, you just have to practice being very still with your hands. And of course, there's no maximum number, so if there's a really bright sunny day out, you can go as high as you want. But when you combine those two, the big number in aperture and the high shutter speed, that means your camera needs a lot of light to make this happen. You have to do this in daytime, when you have a lot of light outside. I prefer to do this when there's clouds, because the light will be much softer and it's much easier than sunshine. But of course you can do this during sun as well. This technique you can use for anything that has to do with portraits. If it's confirmation, weddings, corporate portrait photos. If you're taking a picture of a person, go for it. You can do this. You can also do this with more people as well. You just have to stand a little more further back. And when you hold the camera, I like to support the lens and the camera with both hands. And I also put the viewfinder up towards my forehead to stabilize it even more. Okay, so now it's time to show some examples. See you soon. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick demonstration on the 200mm portrait trick that I'm showing you. So today we have Karina in the shoot, and we are going to take some pictures just outside our apartment. And as you can see, there are not really very suitable for a picture, but we have a little bush right over there, and that is what we are going to use as a background. So to make this work, we need to make sure that there are some distance between the background and our beautiful model, and we need to have some distance from the beautiful model and to where we can stand and take the shot. Okay, best of luck.